Yesterday was the first time to actually see it. The lack of size, yes, Jackson Hayes only played X amount of minutes. Obviously, we know what happened with the Mark Williams trade. They tried getting Alex Len in the buyout market, which they did. Not having Dorian Finney-Smith is clearly a big difference for this team. But, Jovan, as you look 2 weeks down the road, 30 days down the road, 2 months down the road, what's your level of concern, maybe is the right way to put it? It's just the predicament that the Lakers are in. What is your concern that from a size perspective, rebounding perspective, points in the paint, how much is this just going to be a conversation, do you think, for the remainder of this season?
I think it's going to be a conversation because I think if you look at this group and really the top 8, which I would consider the starting lineup, plus Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent, like there are some clear strengths, and we've seen that this group. Like I said on my show last night, like this group has won 12 of 15, and I don't think we should lose perspective of that. They were at one point in the season kind of like a fringe playoff / play-in team, kind of in that like 6 to 8 range, and like they were there for a while, and they played their way into the home court advantage conversation, and I think they have a legitimate chance to potentially finish as high as like number 3. I mean, maybe even number 2, depending on how the rest of the season goes. So I don't want to lose the big picture perspective of how this team has been playing and how well they've been playing. I mean, I looked it up last night. Past 15 games, they're number 6 in offense, number 4 in defense, and number 4 overall in net rating. And the 3 teams ahead of them are OKC, Denver, and Cleveland. So Boston's right behind them. So like they're right there in that elite class of, I would probably say those are the top 5 teams in the league, and the Lakers are right in that mix. Certainly I'd put several of those teams ahead of them, but just wanted to kind of preface everything with that. That said, looking at the top 8, defensive rebounding and rim protection are 2 clear concerns. And I think the Lakers are probably going to have to win in spite of those weaknesses. Because I think to quote AD from, I believe it was last season, like the cavalry is not coming. Alex Len is not the answer. Maybe there is a buyout player that ends up shaking loose that the Lakers can offer a starting spot or at least a prominent bench spot. And maybe that player can come in and have an impact. But until that player does become available, and there's no guarantee that caliber of guy becomes available, just looking at it, like I think Jackson Hayes has improved defensively. I think the rim protection's been better, the shot blocking's been better, but he's always been a below average defensive rebounder for a player his size. Then I mentioned the top 8. There's not another center in that top 8. And they do have, like, Luka's a good defensive rebounder. LeBron's a good defensive rebounder. Vando is obviously a good defensive rebounder. Then a guy like Dorian doesn't get a lot of rebounds, but boxes out well. So, like, they have, like, wings that could do those types of things, but they don't have the Anthony Davis or that type, even like that caliber of rim protector or defensive rebounder. So, I think this is going to be an issue that they're going to have to overcome internally and figure out kind of the best way to get past it. But they might just have enough offensive firepower and playmaking and shot creation that it ultimately doesn't matter, at least in the sense of like they still make the conference finals or have a deep playoff run. But I think if as constructed, barring injury or whatever, if this team loses at some point in the playoffs, I think it will likely just be a size thing where some team overwhelms them with offensive rebounds, points in the paint, easy. Like last night, it was the second. And it's crazy we're talking about Jackson Hayes within all this, but like Jackson Hayes goes out and it turns into a layup line. Like that's what happened last night. And I was kind of down on the Alex Len signing. Like I watched like 45 minutes of his film. I went through all of his stats. I looked at all his box scores in Sacramento, and it was like, he was basically the 3rd string guy in Sacramento that they just didn't like. He's averaged single digit minutes for 3 straight seasons. And that to me was a little bit of a red flag of like Sacramento kind of needs the skill set of Alex Len. But even when he was there, they didn't really play him that much. So, I mean, last night was rough. I think he'll be better. I think he deserves some grace for like flying in the night before late. And he said he didn't know any plays. So like, we'll give him some of that. But to be honest, it was kind of similar to what I saw on film in Sacramento. So I think that the strengths are the strengths, the weaknesses are the weaknesses, and they're going to have to find a way to overcome it.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the Alex Len portion, and I don't think anybody was expecting to see him play 22, 23 minutes, whatever he ended up playing. No. I think I know when he did sign in the buyout market, one of the things I mentioned is what are you really asking him to do? Can he give you 10 to 12 minutes in a game, probably use 5 or 6 fouls? Kind of everything is predicated on who you're playing. And if you just need a big body out there, but if you're asking him, and I get it, and this is just going to be fan reaction, but everybody was so critical about him yesterday. I'm like, well, if you had, the problem is what your expectations were. If your expectations were that, you thought he was going to come in and be something to kind of clog up this or clog up that, that's just not Alex Len. Like and frankly, and I love what you were saying about his time with the Sacramento Kings. It hasn't been him in years anyway, so it's not going to just all of a sudden come out of nowhere. Now, if Hayes is healthy, how many minutes does Alex Len play last night? If Dorian Finney-Smith is around, what is JJ Redick being a little bit more creative with saying, okay, I'm going to probably use Len 8 minutes or 9 minutes rather than 22. I don't know if yesterday was the perfect example of it.
100%, because I mean, I think the other thing we saw last night was the fragility of this rotation, because I went through it and it's like within the top 8, they kind of need everybody. Like just going through it, Jackson, we saw the importance of Jackson, and the Lakers were actually +2 in Jackson's minutes last night. So they had outscored Utah. It was only 7 minutes, but I think if Jackson is healthy, I don't know if they win the game, but I think the game is closer. I don't think they get stomped the way that they get stomped if Jackson is playing. But we see Jackson's importance. Of course, Luka, LeBron, Austin, I think those 3 go without saying. DFS and Gabe, though, I thought last night we really saw how much they miss those 2. And like the Lakers' 3 best defenders right now in the rotation are coming off the bench. DFS, Vando, and Gabe in some order, however you want to rank them. And Gabe and DFS in particular are their 2 best 2-way guys, because both of those guys are plus 3-point shooters and plus multi-positional defenders. So like missing those 2 guys really hurt them. Of course, Vando's come in, made a huge difference with the rebounding, the energy, the defense. And then, Rui's been shooting the ball well, playing well offensively. So I don't really think they can afford to miss any of those players in the top 8. And that, I think, what was kind of exposed last night, of like they were essentially missing 3 of their top 8 players. And I don't think this team has the depth and really the versatility to replace those 3 players, especially on human element. Last game before the All-Star break, they just beat this team by 20. And I think they were a little overconfident. And then, you got Alex Len coming in, not knowing the playbook. There was just a lot of things that went against them. Doesn't excuse the loss. I still think they should have won. I still think it was a bad loss. But I think we've learned now, like for this group to hit their ceiling, I do think moving forward, they're basically going to need those top 8, or at least like 7 of them, to be available on a nightly basis. And if any of those guys are out, I think they're going to it's going to be hard for them to just overcome that. Lakers have one more move to make. I think the thing with Len is, like, ideally it would have been a 10-day, because I think if they gave him a 10-day and they saw last night's performance, we'll see how he performs the rest of the way. Like, he might not have gotten a second contract. The problem was he was about to sign with Indiana. That's right. Guaranteed for the rest of the season. So Lakers didn't have any leverage to potentially offer him a 10-day. So I think he's going to be on the roster the rest of the way. But yeah, they get one more crack at it. So they can waive one more player and then sign. So a couple options could either be like a buyout big becomes available that they like, they go and get that player, or they can convert one of their 2-way guys later in the season, be it Jordan Goodwin, Christian Koloko, or Trey Jemison. Say it would probably be between Goodwin and Koloko, but I think it depends on how those guys continue to play and just perform. So we'll see, but they have some options. I think they're going to be a little bit more patient with this one, because I think that they needed the idea of Len, but again, I don't know how much Len can actually contribute to what they're looking for.
All right, thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.